Dear listener, some days you wake up and you think, I don't know what today is about. Maybe I knew what yesterday was about, but today I've woken up and I'm not quite sure. There's too many things ahead of me that are overwhelming and not enough threads that are coming together to make sense of it. I had a conversation with a friend just the other day and he said, "What's wrong?" And I said, I don't know. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. The two phrases that came to mind were frustrations and lots of loose threads. And maybe they're exactly the same thing. For a day, and maybe it's the dad of it all, trying to measure that you got to tick a box today, that you actually finished a sentence, that there was an outcome to something, that you got to finish a task. Maybe you've got the kind of job where at the end of the day, you know whether you've made something, finished something, achieved something. None of my jobs have ever been like that. I'm day to day. My role is as a pastor of a local church, and it's really hard to know if you've ticked a box. Sometimes you've had a great time helping someone, and you can sort of say that was a win, or even for us on a Sunday, it's been a good service, which is such a hard thing to describe anybody. Anyway, it's one of those moments where you think, I think we hit something there. We spoke to the heart of an issue. We spoke to the heart of people, but it's a hard thing to measure. It's a hard thing to measure, and parenting is no different. It's a hard thing to measure. It's hard to know whether you did a good dad job today or a bad dad job today. In fact, most of the time, I'm very, very clear when I've had a bad dad day. That one's easy to measure, because you feel like you've maybe failed the little people in your house, or the big people in your house, or your partner, or whatever. We're wired to pick up on those days. But the days that are worth celebrating, just some, they feel few and far between. But there are days like that, and that's where you need friends around you to remind you that there are plenty of days like that. My mate Heath has been going through some health battles of late, and it made me reflect. I guess as you do, it sobers you up a bit and makes you a bit more thankful for the healthy days, a bit more thankful for the happy days. But I wondered if we could take a little bit of time aside to thank God for the good days and for good mates. My name's Justin. This is Father Figures. In the cyberspace studio today, my mate Heath has...
Am I in the sick bay of the cyberspace? Is that the idea, that we've got a, like at school where they have a sick bay and there's a bed that's, got a blanket? Am I in there today?
Was that, I mean, apart from being the most comfortable room at the school, which is a fond memory, that's a weird thing to say. I like the sick bay because you could lie down at the sick bay.
Because you could lie down. Yeah.
You're in the Father Figures sick bay. You've been sent to the bench, and recently you've just gone back and had a skin cancer removed from your scalp.
From my noggin.
But it wasn't very straightforward, was it? And first of all, let me say, at the moment, have you got a clean bill of health at the moment? Is that right?
Oh gosh, that's an open-ended question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You want a stool sample as well, just to be sure, because that's the only way you can really.
Well, the
tell.
last one you sent me didn't give me enough data, so I need a few.
I tell you, if we ever get
by the way, my wife would like to say, please stop sending us stool samples. It's weird, man. It's just weird now.
If we ever get a chance, I want to tell you this short story. I won't do it right now. Maybe later on in the podcast of the bowel cancer check that you get, the kit that they send you.
Yeah, because you've hit that age.
Hilarious, but let's not do that right now.
Okay. So, dear listener, stick around. Come back. Stick around, because there's going to be some gold.
There's
gold
the
at the end of this one.
Do I have a clean bill of health? Well, it's a really weird situation. So, I'm a pale white man that I've been pale all my life. I had my first skin cancer.
You didn't start out with darker skin?
I didn't start out like, tanned and buff. No, I've always been like this.
At no point did you look like one of those Mattel dolls we all had. That's the point.
That's it. I've never looked like The Rock. It's not been my thing.
Yeah.
And when I was about 5, I had my first skin cancer on my face, on my cheek, and it was removed. Back then, when in the 1970s, they didn't have a thing as these tiny little keyhole surgeries. They put a big incision in my face and cut out this cancer, and it was all clear. And then it wasn't until it was about 4 years ago I started noticing these a little spot on my face. And anyway, since in the last 4 years, I've had 4 skin cancers removed.
Mm.
Now, if knowing a little bit about the different types of cancers, I've been really fortunate in that they've been what's called most of them have been called a carcinoma, and a carcinoma is a cancer that traditionally doesn't spread.
Mm-hmm.
So it stays localized, but you do need to deal with it because it can spread, but it's unlikely that it does. So I've been really fortunate that all of these cancers I've had have been ones that don't spread. The most recent one I had has been called a squamous cell instead of a basal cell carcinoma. So still in carcinoma family. So a slightly different one, a little bit more likely that it can spread, but you got to catch it early. And it was right on the top of my head. And I noticed it, and they took a biopsy of it and said, yep, it's what they call an SCC. And so when I went back to the hospital to have it removed, the surgeon, on surgery day, looks and he goes, so where's the one we're removing? And I'm like, I'm feeling with my finger going, I think it's here, where it was. Because you could hardly see it. Drew a circle on it, cut a hole in my head the size of a 50-cent piece, really, and took a skin graft from my collarbone. You can kind of see there, and if you're looking on camera, they just for you. I don't show everyone my collarbone.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
When it comes to clavicles, you've got them.
I am right there, man. So anyway, skin graft up on my head. Go back in the last week to sort of go. They send the sample off to the lab to check have they got all the cancer, and came back and said, yeah, look, actually, they couldn't find any cancer in the sample that we sent them.
Wow.
It was pre-cancerous skin. It was sun damage, but they couldn't find any. So we're just wondering if we got the right spot. So then I pull out my phone and I show them pre-surgery, me pointing at the spot. So there are now 2 plastic surgeons in the room holding my phone up to my head, trying to compare. Is that the spot? Is that where it's...
That's very high tech of you.
Yeah. So anyway, at some point, they get a little bit distracted and he goes, actually, look, I mean, we've got the general area. And he's right. We got the general area and, if there was something there, it's been removed. It's not like they were way off. They were in the right spot. But he said there's 3 more spots on here I'd like to biopsy today because I don't like the look of them. So I went in to sort of get a clean bill of health and came out with 3 more biopsies that have gone off that I'll find out, maybe this week, maybe next week, what the story is with those. So
you've been journeying with this for several years now. Like you say, it's actually impacted you since you were a child. Calculations and feelings these days when you're thinking where you're up to age-wise, where your kids are up to. Because nowadays you go in to get an update on your health, and yes, it's about you, but every parent knows the feeling of calculating your health comparative to where your children are up to.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think it's a different impact when you bring kids or partners or other people into the equation. When it's just yourself, when you're a single bloke in their 20s, you kind of it doesn't feel as dramatic as it is now because you know that if it's something nasty, this has potential devastating impacts on your kids, and that's nothing that we want. I'm really fortunate that if I'm going to get a type of cancer, that the ones that I've got are the best kinds to get because they're generally
treatable.
Localized. They're generally able to be removed if they're caught quickly enough. Everything's okay. I don't have to go and have chemo. I don't have to have any radiation therapy. Nothing like that. So I'm really fortunate, but I'm also really aware that once you feel like once you open that little box of cancer, then you kind of go, wonder what else is in that box. Is there something else? Because you get those, does it mean you can get something else? And that does start to feed into that sense of mortality and that, wow, am I going to be 85 and dying of old age on a bed with my family around me, or is it going to happen earlier? And how horrible would that be for my kids, And
To
I
the
know that
to
there's
the
people listening that would have experienced that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking of some family members now. So you've known this since you were a child.
Mm.
Was there a point in your children's lives early on where they understood that daddy got cancer checks and that was a normal thing?
Look, again, I went and had this surgery, and it's day surgery, fortunately, so it's pretty straightforward. It's a sedation. It's not a big general anesthetic kind of stay overnight. I came home from the hospital, so they knew I was going to get it. I came home, and one of the kids goes, "Oh yeah, forgot you were getting that done today." And it's like, oh, okay,
Just yeah.
you know,
Picked up a coffee, had a Zoom meeting, also got some cancer removed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
Just part of your day. Yeah.
I mean, they're
Yeah.
kids, so I don't think they really have a sense of, any of that finality of life. They haven't experienced it really. They haven't
Yeah.
seen it first up. All the grandparents are still alive, all of that kind of stuff. They
Right.
haven't had that one-to-one interaction with the finality of life. And so, and I'm trying to keep it in proportion to them. I'm a fairly relaxed person. I've also got enough of a medical background that I understand that this is likely something that's not going to be an issue. But it still doesn't stop your brain from, going down that road of, well, what if, what
Yeah.
if? Yeah.
And I think for them too, understanding that dad's health impacts his mood, wouldn't it?
Mm.
Like, yeah, that you'd be, are you, I mean, again, it feels like something that you're almost used to, but does it still create that stress for you that, like you said, you've gone in to go, I want to stay healthy, want to be around for my kids, I want to be around for the long haul here, and so I'm going to get this treated, and you've gone in and the doctor said, hey, there's 3 more spots here.
Yeah.
What goes through your mind when that happens?
Oh, the thing that went through my mind was, mate, why didn't you take the biopsy while you were doing the other surgery? Come on, seriously. Now you're going to shove local anesthetic in my head and it's going to hurt. And I've got to go home
You
and
go
wait.
to the practical. You should have done the job. You should have done the job while you were there. You were in the roof anyway. Why didn't you just change the tiles?
It's like, seriously, mate, it's not like you weren't staring at the top of my head for an hour while you did this surgery. You could have gone, hey, while we're here. And that's quite literally what went through my head at the time.
Wow, just a practical thought.
Inconvenience and annoyance. I think for the kids, the thing that, I do, for this surgery, I came home because there was a sedation involved. I was really tired. And, because as you would know, as a dad with boys, you tend to wrestle a lot with your kids, or you have these play fight moments, or you kick soccer balls in the house or do something. I couldn't do any of that for a few days. I'm like, hey guys, I just, let's be careful of the head.
Yeah.
Let's be careful of my shoulder, because where they took the skin graft from actually was hurting so much more than my head was. So, right over here, like every time they come to give you a hug and they put their arms around you, you have to go, oh, just not,
Yeah.
So it's those little reminders. That's probably the thing that impacts them the most. And in fact, just the other day, my youngest said to me, hey, Dad, are you feeling okay that we can wrestle again now? So it's been on his mind. He's known that we haven't been able to have a wrestle, that we haven't been able to fight. And I'm like, yeah, man, let's do it, and we get into it. So again, for the kids, it's what's that practical thing that impacts them. They don't get the emotion of it. They don't get the emotion of cancer and what cancer is and what cancer could be. They get the practical thing of what it means they can't do with dad.
I think one of the devastating effects of getting older is realizing how big the world is and how impacting in this case, your health actually is on the world around you. One of the beautiful things of being young is that you don't know how big the world is yet, and you don't know how many consequences there are to all these sorts of things. And so you're forever trying to, I want to protect that in my kids. I want them to believe the world is wonderful and beautiful and safe, and this little bubble you're in, this family, that's what you're trying to, essentially any parent that wants to create a loving environment, that's why you're doing it. You're trying to create a beautiful little bubble where everything's safe, where they can be completely themselves, and the world can't get you here. that's what a home is. That's why a home is a castle. This is the defense mechanism against
Yeah.
all the ugly of the world around you. But yes, then having to make those, I guess they're decisions, aren't they, of how much information to share with the kids, what's
Mm.
age appropriate for the different age
Yeah.
groups, and then like you say, when you're talking about something, the word cancer just brings up all sorts of
Yeah.
fears. And for my kids who they understood this very early. One of my boys was in a class with a child who actually passed away from cancer, and it affected the whole school. But their particular class were journeying with this family as the progression went. It was an amazing thing to see a child with potentially more resilience than an adult understanding that their friend was going to pass away, but they were going to make these days count. So it was a really, it's that strange, bittersweet thing. And I think also, in their context, they're another family with Christian faith. And so they had great faith that God was in control, and there's great comfort and peace that passes understanding in those prayers as well. But I remember waiting to sort of try and figure out what I needed to say to my child to help them cope with what was happening at school. And it's almost like, because again, is it that they don't see the why? We worry more than they do. We can, and so I do sometimes take that little lesson of come as a child, understand that there's things happening in the moment that you have no control over, but you can enjoy the moment. Is that the right way to say that?
You can
make
appreciate
the moment count.
Yeah. You appreciate it differently. Yeah. And I think the getting sick, having skin cancers, so non-serious type cancers, if you like, they're good reminders that we need to look after ourselves.
Right.
We need to pay attention to our bodies, and we need to be careful, because we're not immortal. We are all going to die. They talk about the two certainties in life, don't they? Of death and taxes.
Death and taxes.
It's coming for all of us, and all we're all trying to do is hopefully prolong it for as long as we can, and make it as good as we can until that moment. And these, for me, are these little check-in moments of, hey, remember you're not 19 anymore. And you're not going to just keep living like you did when you were 19. You need to live differently. You need to think differently. You need to take care of yourself differently. And for me, they're really good reminders in that regard. If you can think of it like that, like I'm just trying to prolong my life. I look at my parents who are nudging 80, and just take such good care of themselves, because they listen to both their bodies and they listen to the medical advice of what their doctors tell them they need to do. And they're two people that are just, working in ambulance. I used to see people that were 90 years old and looked like they were 70. And then I would see people who were 70 and they looked like they were 90. And it was the difference of people that kind of listened and paid attention to what their body was telling them, to what their doctors were telling them, and took care of that, and those that didn't. And I've always vowed that I'd try to be that person that continued to look after myself, because I do want to be here, not so much that I can live and I can do the things for me, but I want to be here for my kids. I want to be here, hopefully, for grandkids one day. They're the milestones that I want to do. It's not for some career progression. It's not to see Essendon win more premiership flags, although I may have to live a long time.
I was going to say more lifetimes are needed for that, but yes. Yeah.
But, it is for those big moments of, hey, I want to see my kids grow up. I want to see them get married. I want to see them have kids. I want to be involved with them as adults. They're the bits that we want to progress.
It's not a bad reminder of the relative simplicity of goals as you get older.
Yeah.
So I keep coming back to, as you're young, like we talked about on a recent episode, we talked about calling the gifts out in our kids. wanting them to get, to find their passion and encourage their passion and, help them achieve in that space. And part of that is about finding joy in life. Part of that is about finding a career trajectory, how you're going to earn money to pay for your life, all that sort of stuff. But as you age, the meta-narrative just keeps revealing itself that you're just here for the next generation.
Yeah.
It's that simple. So the looking after your health portion of that, which, by the way, you talking is making me feel fantastically guilty for not doing that. But, you've been aware of this since you were a child. I know that you've lived a very, very healthy life. You were a vegetarian for a long, long time. I think was that a health choice as much as anything?
No, it was more of an ethical choice than a health choice. It turned into a really good health choice.
Yeah.
When you come off that, and COVID kind of snapped me out of that for whatever reason.
Right.
After 20 years of really not eating meat, more than 20 years probably.
Yeah.
I really do notice the difference in my health for it, and I'm conscious of it now. And I'm now at a point where I'm trying to wrestle that side of my health back, because our health is in so many different ways: our spiritual health, our physical health, our mental health. But even in our physical health, we've got things like skin checks, we've got what we eat, we've got how much we exercise, we've got how we look after our hair or lack of hair, or our beard, or whatever it is. There's all these different things. And as I've got older, you start to focus on different parts of that, because the things that you eat have much greater consequence for you as you're older than when you're younger. And we notice that as we jokingly call this podcast Father Figures. We jokingly refer to it as, it doesn't mean dad bods. It means it's about the father figures in our life. But you get dad bods as you get older. Things change. We get the tummy happening, and we need to watch out for that stuff.
So for you then, as far as your mental, emotional, spiritual health is, like, have you gone through have you ever gone through the angry with God kind of phase over your health?
Never.
Or is it just...
No. I rarely would I say I would blame God for many things. I think most of the things are either they're either my own doing, or they're just things that have happened. Skin cancers, man, it's just stuff that happens. Luck of the draw. I actually become more grateful for it, because I'm going, at the moment, all these cancers, I'm going through the public health system. I'm not paying a cent for it.
Amazing.
Which is ridiculous when you think about even countries like Americans, health. They don't have that. Places in parts of the world that I've been to in previous roles where people just don't even have access to medical care, basic medical care, let alone things like skin cancers. So, I look at that and see the flip side of the gratitude that I have, because I don't think God ordains this stuff for me. I think it's just the makeup of who I am.
Yeah, and I love that perspective. Again, I think that because it does speak to, I guess, the core strength that you carry, which is, I've always known you as a man that has great discipline around certainly your ethical approach to life. You've worked with lots of NGOs and you've seen the crummier parts of the world. Is that one way of putting it? Where governments don't care for their citizens and all sorts of things. And I think you've always had an incredible sense of the value of life and the value of each life individually. And so I think that I would expect that your children would be picking up on that anyway. So it probably doesn't surprise me that going through a health battle, they're probably picking up on the same thing. It's not, you're not depressed. You're not, you're smacking your head against the wall. You're not shaking your fist at the moon. You're just like, this is another thing that happens. And we approach it with the same disciplined core strength that you've had your whole life.
Yeah, no, thank you. I would agree, and I think that our kids take their cues from us as parents, but as dads. So if I'm stressed and worried about skin cancers or whatever, my kids would be too, and I don't want them to be. And I mean, I'm not genuinely freaked out about it at all, so that's helpful, but I'm not even feeling like I'm trying to hide it, because I'm actually not genuinely freaked out. So it's a real for me, it's quite easy to not let my kids worry about it. And if they did, man, we talk about it. But there's not even a sign. Like I said, they vaguely even know that I went to hospital and had surgery. So, what hope? I never have to worry about them being worried.
They were more just hoping that that you'd get well enough to have a wrestle again.
That was exactly it.
I think I keep coming back. So many of our conversations, man. And look, I hope they're encouraging to people listening. And if you're going through a health battle at the moment, we're praying that you've got some good people around you, because honestly, half the time it's just about sharing the journey with another person and actually sharing, engaging, talking about what's going on for you. For me, man, it's been incredible talking to you over these last few weeks, I guess it's been now, about this journey, and just really picking up on that sense that it's not causing you great anxiety, it's not causing you great fear. And I think that there are obvious things you've done over a lifetime to build resilience in that space. But my goodness, so many of our conversations, the theme music of our podcast is from a song I wrote called "Did You Don't Worry." Did you know that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So the themes, the reason the lyric says "Did you don't worry," even though that's probably bad grammar and my English teaching father would be disappointed in it, is the question I'm raising is for myself, of teaching our children not to worry but cast their cares on the Lord, for He cares for you. My question is, well, did you? After we instilled that, after we talked about that, after we taught that, after we modeled that, did you? Could you actually not worry? And I'm just observing in you this thing of, and again, you've talked about some of the things that make this a bit more of a manageable thing for you. It's not, it's perhaps not as life-threatening as other things can be, but it's still revealing your mortality. It's still revealing that sense of, what am I leaving behind? What am I investing into? And genuinely, I'm not seeing that sense of deep worry and anxiety. I'm seeing a confidence and a sense of, I'm going to just live with purpose and keep investing, keep living well, I guess is the thing. Was actually Jesus' words in, it was Matthew 6, isn't it? Matthew 6. This is what I tell you, don't worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Isn't life more than food, and the body more than clothing? And it then says, look at the birds of the air, how they don't sow or reap or gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Aren't you worth more than they? Who can you, and it says, can any of you add a single day to your life by worrying? And it's the most, I just find that such a challenging scripture, because I want to worry. I feel compelled to worry at times. I feel like I want to spend some time worrying. I want to indulge in worry. But I think that the ongoing lesson is the birds of the air, the lilies of the field. There's a creation process going on all around us that we can be thankful for. And if we stop and we're thankful for the moments we do have, for the family we do have, for the beauty we do see, it actually can be an incredible cure for the thing that causes us the most pain in our life, which is worry and anxiety. And the cure for that worry and anxiety is to continually cast our cares on Him, for He cares for us. So, man, I'm just so encouraged by the fact that you seem to be one man who seems to be able to apply that liberally. And I came into today's recording a little concerned, a little anxious, little like I really, really didn't want to do this. But, dude, I'm so grateful for the way you've shared with us today. And I hope other people are really thankful too. And if you're not, stop it. Be more thankful. You're a beautiful father figure. I love the shape of you.
The dad bod.
Love you, man. Stay
Love
well,
you, brother.
And I'll catch you on the next step.